Recently, the CCP appeared more aggressive and has cranked up its war rhetoric. Beijing claimed sovereignty over the Taiwan Strait by stating that this is not international waters. China's defense minister exchanged words with his U.S. counterpart at the Asian Defense Summit and uttered, "China will fight to the end, at any cost." Meanwhile, Xi Jinping signed an executive order to set the stage for non-wartime military operations, which some experts say is fashioned after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. How should we interpret these events? What is the CCP's true intention? Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Lei. First of all, I want to remind you that my next live session is next Saturday, June 25th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 7 a.m. on the West Coast, midnight on Sunday in Australia, and 4 p.m. in continental Europe. Hope to see you then. At a June 13th press conference, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin claimed sovereignty over the Taiwan Strait. There's no such thing as international waters. By claiming that the Taiwan Strait is international waters, some countries intend to create an excuse for their manipulation of the Taiwan issue and threaten China's sovereignty and security. Earlier, at the Asia Defense Summit in Singapore, or Shangri-La Dialogue, China's Defense Minister Wei Fangs said this:
如果有人胆敢把台湾分裂出去，我们一定会不惜一战，不惜代价，搞台独，死路一条，妄想，挟洋自重，不会得逞，休想。
That's a defiant speech. How should we interpret these developments? The CCP has had major setbacks in foreign affairs in recent months. Its diplomacy scorecard is 0. China continues to be at loggerheads with the United States. The Russia-Ukraine war has jeopardized China's relations with the EU. South Korea's attitude towards China has also hardened. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi made a special trip to the South Pacific, attempting to draw in Pacific Island nations and create a wedge to confront the United States and Australia, but returned home empty-handed. The regime must act tough to save face in front of its domestic audience and political enemies. Defense Minister Wei Fangs was putting on a show in Singapore for that purpose. Wei is the number 4 figure in the CCP's military. The number 1 is, of course, Xi Jinping, who is the chairman of the Military Commission. The number 2 is Xu Qiliang, and then Zhang Youxia. Xu and Zhang are vice chairman of the Military Commission. They are both members of the CCP's Politburo, a governing body of 25 top CCP leaders. Defense Minister Wei isn't a member of the Politburo. He's a member of the CCP's Central Committee, which is comprised of 204 top CCP leaders. Wei's rank isn't very high within the central leadership, and he was merely playing a supportive role to the big boss by acting tough. For the CCP to formally prepare for military action against Taiwan, it must solve one big problem. That is, it needs to establish the legitimacy of a Taiwan war for its domestic audiences, because a war is costly and will disrupt the economy, industries, and people's life. Such a massive operation will fail without the support of the people. Facing low morale within the party, the lack of trust among leaders, and growing resentment from the populace, the regime needs to have a reason and good soundbites to mobilize the masses. For example, during the Korean War in the 1950s, the CCP called on the people to counter the United States aiding Korea. During the Sino-Vietnamese War, the CCP justified military action as a self-defense battle against Vietnam. If it attacks Taiwan, it needs a similar reason. Historically, the CCP has announced 3 conditions under which it will use forces to take over Taiwan. 1. Taiwan declares independence. 2. Taiwan experiences internal unrest. And 3. Foreign military forces enter Taiwan. Judging from the current situation, the first 2 conditions are unlikely to happen. Therefore, the CCP can only work around the third condition to create an excuse for war. It must make up an excuse of an external threat that warrants the use of force. The CCP's self-declared sovereignty over Taiwan waters is to serve that purpose. It's the same tactic as the 9-dash line the CCP used to declare sovereignty over the South China Sea. If the United States and the international community back down, then the CCP has succeeded. If they don't, that gives the CCP the excuse to fight. This excuse, of course, isn't accepted internationally, but it can deceive the Chinese people, who are subject to censorship and brainwashing. Almost simultaneously on June 13th, Xi Jinping signed an executive order called the Outline of Non-Wartime Military Operations, effective immediately on June 15th, which was his birthday. On his birthday, Xi held a conference call with Vladimir Putin. Some analysts say his non-wartime military order was fashioned after Russia's so-called special military operation against Ukraine. Taiwanese military commentator Qi Leyi holds that view. He believes that this move aims to provide the legal groundwork for the CCP to attack Taiwan without having to call it a war. Like Russia, the CCP can call it special military operations. This will give the CCP more legitimacy internally in launching attacks. In addition to preparing for a war against Taiwan, the order also helps prevent a political coup. Xi is facing a tremendous obstacle in getting his third term approved in the fall. Recently, there have been many rumors about his ouster. What guarantees his power is the military, which can now be deployed in the event of opposition. By this order, Xi can legitimately make the PLA his private bodyguards. It can be said that Xi signed this order to prevent a political coup. Dr. Kui De-chen, executive chairman of the Princeton China Initiative, said Xi is experiencing great difficulties on the domestic front with the economy and his COVID policy. He has felt threatened, so he is raising the military's role to create more artificial state of emergency in order to hold on to power. The third reason that Xi signed the order is to suppress domestic social unrest. The CCP's armed police force has traditionally been part of its PLA or military forces. Because the police force has a strong connection to local governments, the central leadership in Beijing has had trust issues with the police force. During the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, Deng Xiaoping ordered the military forces, not the police force, to open fire on civilians and set a bad precedent for military repression of the people. In 1995, to soften its image internationally, the CCP assigned dual command of the police force to both the State Council and Military Commission. In 2017, Xi Jinping returned the command of the police force to the Central Military Commission, of which he is the chairman. But still, like his predecessors, he doesn't trust the police force. The new order will give him the power to order military forces to suppress social unrest, like Deng Xiaoping did. The full text of the order has not been published. The most notable references made about the order, reported by state media, are effective preventing and resolving risks and challenges, dealing with emergencies, and innovating the use of military forces. To summarize, Xi's order of non-wartime military operation provides legitimacy to a Taiwan attack, protects him in the event of a coup d'etat, and suppresses internal social disturbances. It's not looking good. Sounds like things can turn ugly. That's all for today. Stay tuned, like and share my video, and I'll see you next time. The end.